This isn't just a tale of a man found dead in a field. It's a story woven with shadows, whispered secrets, and mysteries that defy even the brightest minds. Ricky McCormick, a man who battled inner demons and faced a world of threats he could barely understand, left behind a final enigma, a coded message that has stumped the FBI for over 2 decades. From his troubled youth, to the criminal ties he couldn't escape, to the ominous clues he carried with him to the grave. Ricky's story is filled with questions that linger, clues that haunt, and a code that just might hold the answer to his death. This is the ultimate unsolved mystery, and we're about to dive deep. Before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. A life shrouded in shadows. This is where it begins. A young boy, Ricky McCormick, isolated from the start. Teachers, classmates, they all remember him as a boy, apart from the rest. He never played with the others at recess, never joined in with laughter or games. He was different, a mystery even back then. His mother once described him as retarded, a term that clings heavily to the image of a child struggling to make sense of the world. To his favorite aunt, Gloria Cookie McCormick, Ricky's struggles were something darker. She remembers a psychiatrist's chilling words. Ricky had a brick wall in his mind, a wall that he could not break down. And it was this wall that separated Ricky from the rest of the world, a silent barrier that trapped him in his own universe, haunted by visions and fears only he could see. Ricky struggled through school, and by the time he dropped out, he could barely read or write. His family later admitted he had his own way of writing, a style that wasn't words, but strange, indecipherable scribbles. His cousin remembers it well. Ricky talked like he was in another world. In 1992, the darkness around Ricky grew thicker. He was charged with statutory rape, a horrifying crime. A girl, known only to his family as Pretty Baby, had 2 children by him. She was barely 14. Ricky was 34. The case unfolded in hushed whispers, but the details painted a grim picture. Ricky's public defender argued that he suffered from a mental disease or defect, but it wasn't enough to shield him. He was deemed fit to stand trial, and he pleaded guilty. 13 months, that's what he spent in the Farmington Correctional Center. 13 months in a cage. But when Ricky was released, he returned to a world that seemed even darker than before. Ricky found work on the graveyard shift at an Amoco gas station in downtown St. Louis. Here the shadows closed in. He worked for 2 brothers, Juma and Bahabab Hamdala, brothers with violent reputations, men who knew how to navigate the darker side of life. His girlfriend would later tell police she thought Ricky was smuggling marijuana for the brothers, making mysterious trips to Florida. She noticed a fear in his eyes, something she'd never seen before. Perhaps Ricky didn't fully understand what he'd gotten himself into. Perhaps he sensed danger lurking in every shadow. But the darkness was closing in, and he knew it. The Last Days of a Haunted Man, June 1999. Ricky McCormick was unraveling, and those closest to him were beginning to worry. Between June 22nd and June 25th, he made not 1 but 2 desperate trips to local emergency rooms, complaining of chest pains, struggling to breathe. Was it his heart condition? Or was it something else? Something unseen gnawing at him from the inside? Once they admitted him. The second time, they turned him away. And that was the last anyone saw of Ricky McCormick, alive. 3 days later, on June 30th, Ricky's body was found, 20 miles from where he lived and worked, lying in a field alone, forgotten. He'd been dead long enough that his body had already begun to decompose under the blistering summer sun, but there was no clear cause of death. To Captain David Tiefenbrunn, Bureau Commander of Criminal Investigations for the St. Charles County Police, something was off. He later said, "If I was to rely on my police instincts, there probably is some foul play. We just haven't been able to prove it." But as they searched his pockets, they found something strange, something that didn't fit. 2 notes, written in a code that seemed to make no sense. A collection of letters, numbers, and symbols, scrawled hastily, almost as if Ricky had left a piece of his own fractured mind on paper, a riddle that would haunt the FBI for decades. Code that defied the FBI. The FBI took the notes, passed them to their elite cryptanalysis and racketeering records unit, the team tasked with decoding the most complex messages in the world. They dissected Ricky's notes, scrutinized every symbol, tested every known technique. But it was as if the code was alive, shifting and twisting out of reach. No matter what they tried, the FBI couldn't unlock its secrets. Some experts believe the notes were Ricky's personal shorthand, a private language meant only for him. Others suspected something more sinister, a message tied to his involvement with the Hamdala brothers. And then there were the whispers. Theories that this code was never meant to be broken, that it was a message meant only for those who understood its dark purpose. A puzzle designed to hide a secret no one was ever supposed to uncover. In 2011, more than a decade after Ricky's body was discovered, the FBI made a desperate move. They released the notes to the public, asking ordinary people to try and solve the mystery that had eluded them. The response was explosive. Suddenly, the internet was alive with theories, each more unsettling than the last. Some insisted Ricky's notes pointed to a hidden drug ring, a network of smuggling that spanned across states. Others believed Ricky had stumbled onto something much darker, something that cost him his life. And a few suggested that Ricky was no ordinary man, but an informant trapped in a deadly game, caught between the life he knew and secrets he couldn't control. The internet had become the stage for a modern-day whodunit. Amateur cryptographers, conspiracy theorists, and curious strangers around the world poured over this mystery, but no one could crack it. It was as if the entire world had become consumed with the riddle of Ricky McCormick. With every passing day, the mystery grew. Each symbol, each number, a breadcrumb leading nowhere. And yet, the questions refused to fade. Why would a man like Ricky, a man with no known skills in cryptography, carry such a complex code? A code that even the FBI, with its most brilliant minds, couldn't crack. Some believe that Ricky's death was no random tragedy, that he was a pawn caught in a web of deceit, a web that stretched from the underworld of St. Louis to distant places like Florida. His trips to Florida, which his girlfriend said were strange and secretive, started to raise suspicions. Was he working for the Hamdala brothers in something far more dangerous than anyone realized? Or did Ricky stumble upon a secret so deadly it followed him back to St. Louis, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment? Into the abyss, theories of the internet. Even as the FBI's brightest minds failed to break the code, internet sleuths refused to give up. Forums buzzed with theories. Some saw Ricky as a courier, a man delivering coded messages for a hidden drug cartel. Others pointed to his mental health struggles and claimed that the codes were nothing more than the fragmented thoughts of a tortured mind. Ricky's cousin once said he spoke like he was in another world, and many wondered if his code was a manifestation of this, an elaborate construct of a mind that couldn't conform to reality. But if that were true, how did his private scribblings end up the focus of one of the FBI's most enduring mysteries? One of the most sinister theories revolves around Ricky's connection to the Hamdala brothers, the men who ran the Amoco station. These weren't ordinary business owners. Their violent reputations cast a dark shadow over Ricky's life. And as he made those cryptic trips to Florida, those close to him noticed a change. He was scared, on edge, as if he knew he was in over his head. Some say that Ricky was a drug mule, smuggling marijuana or other substances for a network that stretched across state lines. But was he merely a pawn, or did he know something that made him dangerous to the very people he was working for? Imagine for a moment that Ricky's notes weren't just random symbols, but instructions. A code designed to hide routes, shipments, names of contacts, and that by carrying these notes, Ricky became a target, a loose end that needed to be tied up. Perhaps Ricky's final trip to Florida was his last job, and when he returned to St. Louis, his fate was already sealed. Years after his death, the FBI's decision to release Ricky's coded notes opened a Pandora's box of speculation. Some questioned the timing. Others wondered why the FBI would turn to the public if they suspected the notes were meaningless. Could Ricky's code contain a name, a location, a clue that points to someone powerful, someone connected to a network that reached far beyond St. Louis? In every mystery, there's a tipping point, a moment when things go from strange to terrifying. For Ricky, that moment could have been his last trip to Florida. Was Ricky the unfortunate victim of circumstances beyond his control, a man doomed by the company he kept? The FBI has officially classified Ricky's notes as unbreakable. The notes remain, a lingering ghost of a man who died alone in a field, carrying secrets he could never share. But even now, Ricky's case is far from forgotten. Every few years, the FBI faces new questions, new theories, new doubts about what really happened to him and what lies hidden in those symbols. Ricky McCormick's story is more than a murder mystery. It's a question that lingers, a code that whispers from the past, a riddle that may never be solved. But here at Mystery Media, we believe every mystery deserves to be explored, every secret unearthed. If you're drawn to the unknown, if you seek answers that the world has given up on, then join us. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because we'll keep digging into stories like this, stories that defy explanation, stories that linger in the shadows.